Reilly is originally from Pasadena, California. He was in the Carroll School of Management, majoring in business management with a focus in marketing. And as a junior, he added political science major, which he's finishing this semester. Reilly has interned with the commercial real estate firm CB Richard Ellis and in Hollywood at Escape Artists on the Sony Lot, Contra Film / New Line Cinema, and Village Roadshow Productions. He's currently employed at Cone Inc., a strategy and communications firm, preparing strategy and crisis management for clients on a local, national, and global level. Here at BC, Reilly has served on the Boston College Student Judicial Board as the president of his freshman residence hall for the Residence Hall Association Executive Council and as 48 Hours Retreat Point Guard organizer. He was the president and founder of Boston College National Residence Hall Honoree, director of student rights in UGBC, and in 2009 campaigned for president of UGBC, and he came in second. Over the last few months, Reilly has contacted many members of the recently graduated class of 2010. They have offered opinions, reflections, advice, and final thoughts on the BC experience. Reilly has compiled these ideas along with his own and will now present the collective last lecture of the class of 2010. Please welcome Reilly Dinius.
All right, let's get adjusted here. Can you hear me? Yeah. Check. Mic check. All right. Thank you, Tyler. The funny thing about such warm introductions is that the host never mentions the negatives. Reilly Dinius also never shuts up, can be quite late, and is an expert at what many would consider vices. That's true. But I do never shut up. I love to talk, which is one of the reasons I'm so happy to be speaking to you tonight. Good evening, and welcome to the last lecture of the class of 2010. First off, some thank yous are in order. To start, thank you to our hosts, the Americans for Informed Democracy. Audrey and Kevin were marketing experts, and President Tyler is the man. The Americans for Informed Democracy is a nonpartisan political group. They inform students on campus of issues pertaining to the nation and the world through interesting panels and, of course, lectures, in sometimes political, yet always intellectual ways. Tyler, your club is great, and you lead it well. Thank you for inviting all of us. Thank you to my fellow classmates who participated with written contributions, those who took time out of their day to share their lessons with you. And to all members of the class, we have all shaped each other's lives, we have grown in wisdom, and we have many wonderful stories to share. We know and have felt the most important thing in the world, which is love. Thank you. And thank you to admissions for putting all of us together. Thank you to the Jesuits, professors, administrators, RDs, RAs, health services, custodians, librarians, dining hall employees, the teaching assistants, neighbors of Brighton, mentors, tutors, bus drivers, the Chi-Chi's man, and yes, the Boston College Police Department. Thank you to all who did so much to shape our lives. Welcome to you connecting through the web. You are joining us from faraway places and across long spans of time. Indeed, if you are watching this recording at home, then you are from the future. I hope this lecture finds you well. And thank you for pausing your time to refocus your attention here, your home on the Heights. And of course, thank you all for your gracious welcome and for coming this evening. It's always a good idea to explore various events on campus, discussions, panels, lectures, of course, all of them. Our school has phenomenal intellectual events every day, where you can always find something new to learn. Always be on the lookout for upcoming events and make sure to check out a variety of them while you're here on the Heights. But we can discuss that stuff later. So again, thank you for coming. The original last lecture was founded by Randy Pulsch of Carnegie Mellon. This last lecture has been viewed by millions and inspired series such as this on campuses around the country. Pulsch, who had terminal cancer, presented what truly was his last lecture, titled Achieving Your Childhood Dreams. He also discusses how one can enable the dreams of others. It is a great speech as it shows how Professor Pulsch views his life and time spent on Earth as successful and full as it was. Tonight is nearly 2 years to the day that AI Democracy began this lecture series. There have been 4 last lectures at Boston College before now. one each semester since fall of our sophomore year when the great Father Himes rocked nearly 1,000 students in Lower Hall. Father Himes presented his lecture on November 18th, 2008. In case you don't know Father Himes, he is a professor of theology, has taught countless Eagles, and has published dozens of pieces of work. Father Himes' excellence has been acknowledged from many schools throughout the country, and he is even awarded, quote, the most influential teacher award during his time at the mighty and prestigious Notre Dame, which is the second finest Catholic university in the United States of America. In his first lecture, Father Himes asks us to wonderfully concentrate our minds on whether we had uttered the right message of what really matters in life. He states that one must ask our fellow man, tell me your story. And to know other stories, we must give our stories our very selves away. This provides us with the utmost understanding of life. Father Himes is a brilliant man, and if you do not know him, I encourage you to introduce yourself. The second lecture was delivered by Professor Paul Brinus, the recently retired BC Professor of History. Professor Paul Brinus' fields of interest include modern European intellectual and cultural history, social movements, the history of Marxism, gender and identity, and post-structuralism. I consider myself a relatively intelligent human being, and I had to Google what post-structuralism meant. Professor Brinus has also numerous publications. Given on April 6, 2009, Brinus' speech is entertaining yet serious. It is fun and yet deep. Personal and group identity, reviving concepts of justice, sexuality, discovery, and the human connection are explored. Professor Brinus poses the question, where is history and when? History is within us. He states it is an internal experience. The third lecture was given last year on December 9th by the incredibly elegant Mary Jo Hughes. Professor Hughes, this beloved professor of arts and sciences honors, had recently lost her husband to eternal life, and she spoke of how, quote, grief is a universal experience, and yet it is so very private. Her reflections on language and poetry in relation to the human connection are beautiful. She discusses how time is forever forward in its march, slowly trying to lay waste to human achievement. Yet, then she describes how the human spirit endures through time's failed attempts against us. Deep in her lecture, Professor Hughes discusses how communication and art encompass human emotions, and how we need the love of one another, sometimes more than we can tell. Father Jim Fleming presented the most recent last lecture on March 24th of last spring. Father Fleming spoke of, quote, what's most important to a Jesuit education. He relates this to the epistemology of information, which is the very theory and scope and nature of knowledge. A Jesuit education should help you open to the Lord so that God can help you discern what your calling is in life. Father Fleming closes with how a Jesuit education, the means become the ends. Boston College is a social force for good, where we are all encouraged to, yes, go out someday and set this world aflame. Father Fleming, Professor Mary Jo Hughes, Professor Brinus, and Father Himes are wise. I am humbled to be speaking in their presence and their shadow. Each of these previous lectures are fantastic. The levels of wisdom dispensed are magnificent. Thankfully, they can all be found online, and I recommend viewing all of them. The previous lectures are all on BC Front Row, frontrow.bc.edu, or just Google it. It is my pleasure to speak on behalf of my class that I love so much and have learned so much from. And yes, this is unorthodox. But let me explain to you how our experience this evening came to be. The concept for this talk began last year with AI Democracy President C.C. McDonald while we were at Hillsides, naturally. And we were considering our college mortality. We discussed how special the past 4 years had been, and we discussed our club and how great BC Last Lecture was. As we viewed all the interactions around us, we pondered on you younger Eagles. Your lives not yet finished here, and ours coming to an end. Such times and such stories. If we could talk to you, what would we want to share? What would we want to tell them? What wouldn't and what shouldn't? In the end, CC and I settled on an idea of having like 5 or 6 students write articles on what they had learned here, and we would take those articles and submit them to the Heights so they could all be shared with everybody. And then when CC discussed this concept with the incoming group president, President-elect Tyler, and the rest of the incoming group, the initial concept morphed into a speech for now. I was honored that they asked me. I thoroughly enjoy discussing Boston College with underclassmen, or anyone for that matter. And so it was a prudent fit. Now let me describe for you what this specific lecture is created from. Let me make it very clear that this is not the last lecture of Reilly F. Dinius. If it were, it would discuss Pasadena and the California Republic. Stories of my incredible family, my parents, and my wonderful friends who all came long before BC. It would hold stories of high school adventures in Los Angeles and lessons learned on the sands of Newport Beach. And none of those things are in this lecture, because I did not write it, and it is not about me. For the past few weeks, over hundreds of students were polled with an email that read something like this. Yo, it's Reilly. First read through this, you're probably chilling at work right now anyways. Please make it all the way through. It's not that hard, I assure you. First off, I miss you all. I just got back to Gerald Street. Yup. Yup. From O'Neill, throwback, holla. Skip email, blah, 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 blah. This year, the BC Last Lecture Series is putting on the last lecture of the class of 2010. We are taking the collective wisdom of 2010 Eagles and presenting a lecture to the school. So that is my question for you, my friends. What would you want to say as a final message to the Eagles of 2011, 12, 13, and now 14, now that we have completed an education at Boston College? 13 prompts were given that, after the fact, can be morphed into 4 points. 1, Boston College, why are we the bomb? 2, friends and relationships, their importance. 3, what are your greatest lessons? And 4, what do those first 3 things all mean? The lecture is composed of the writings of dozens and dozens and dozens of students from the class of 2010. My peers have taken time out of their lives to write these messages for you. Each dean's office was contacted. Honors programs, Jesuits, various professors and administrators were consulted on who, in their mind, would like to get involved. Many people who I didn't email contributed as well, proving that, quote, if you know of someone else who'd like to contribute, please feel free to forward this message, worked very well. Combining into what has become, all in all, a very futuristic and democratic experience. I want to say so much. This comes from an email. But then I just keep thinking to myself, what right do I have? I am a 22-year-old with no credibility other than the experiences that I have had. So with that in mind, my greatest lesson would be that life is a gift. Never, ever forget that. You all go to an unbelievable institution, and you are all now part of a brotherhood that is eternal. Live your life with no regrets, and I know it is so much easier said than done. But if you want to learn a language, then learn a language. And if you want to travel, then travel. I guess my point is that you have unbelievable opportunities in the positions you have. Opportunities that you will see soon enough. Most people do not, so use them. Those past 6 sentences came in from Washington, D.C. Emails have come in from all across the entire world. New Jersey and Ohio, Colorado and Rhode Island. Messages from some still here in Chestnut Hill, and a few from Asia. The lessons submitted come now from almost every continent. 2010 is now in Russia, Germany, Paris, South America, Hong Kong, and Egypt. In the United States, emails have come in from Chicago, Houston, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Connecticut, Chestnut Hill, Los Angeles, and the nation's capital. These are just naming a few. The emails have come from many more cities and many more towns. With that explained, I have edited and organized these messages into a coherent and hopefully structured lecture. This is in lieu of me reading this to you word for word, which would get somewhat redundant, and we would be here for much later than 8:30 this evening. I've changed names to pronouns, and at this time will keep all contributions confidential. So it is somewhat the largest plagiarism I have ever participated in. Because other than restructuring, I have added very, very, very few words. The lecture is divided into 3 lessons which support one final one that again were discovered after the fact. But they are evident in every submission.